Dear listener, before Islam reshaped the Arabian Peninsula, one tribe stood at the center of its economic and spiritual map, Quraysh. They were not the largest tribe in Arabia. They were not the strongest in raw military power. They did not control vast farmlands or rivers, but they controlled something far more powerful, the Kaaba. Makkah sat in a harsh valley, dry, rocky, agriculturally unproductive. It was not a natural economic hub. No rivers flowed through it. No crops grew in abundance. From a geographical perspective, it should have been insignificant. Yet it wasn't, because the Kaaba was there, the sanctuary built by Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam became the spiritual heart of Arabia. Even in pre-Islamic times, tribes respected it. Fighting was forbidden within its boundaries. Bloodshed was paused. Pilgrimage, even distorted by idolatry, drew people from across the peninsula, and Quresh were its custodians. This gave them something priceless, prestige. When tribes traveled to Makkah for pilgrimage, they dealt with Quresh. When alliances were formed around sacred months, Quresh were involved. When disputes arose, Quraysh's position near the sanctuary granted them weight. Spiritual centrality translated into political leverage. But Quraysh did not rely on religious prestige alone. They built a commercial empire. Through carefully negotiated tribal agreements, they secured safe passage across hostile territories. They established trade partnerships north toward Syria, under Byzantine influence, and south toward Yemen. Caravans loaded with leather, spices, cloth, grain, and precious goods traveled seasonally under Quraysh's banner. And here is the key: their safety depended on their association with the Kaaba. Arab tribes respected the custodians of the sanctuary. Attacking Quraysh caravans risked spiritual backlash and political retaliation. So the tribe of Makkah enjoyed something rare in Arabia: relative economic stability. In a desert culture defined by uncertainty, Quraysh created predictability. Winter journeys south, summer journeys north, structured commerce, reliable networks. This transformed them from a desert tribe into regional power brokers. Yet there was irony in their dominance. The Kaaba was originally built for Tawheed, pure monotheism. But by the time of the Prophet, Quraysh had filled it with idols. They preserved the structure but corrupted the message. They honored the building, they neglected the purpose, and still their prestige grew. Trade expanded, wealth accumulated, influence spread. From the outside, Quraysh appeared self-made. From the unseen, their stability rested on divine protection. This is what makes Surah Quraysh extraordinary. It addresses them directly, not as enemies yet, but as beneficiaries. It reminds them of something they had normalized: security. Because when blessings become routine, gratitude fades. Quraysh believed their trade success was strategic brilliance. Their political position was tribal intelligence. Their safety was diplomatic skill. But Allah was about to remind them, none of it was accidental. The tribe that controlled Arabia did not control its destiny. And the story behind Surah Quraysh begins with a protection they did not earn, but enjoyed anyway. Before Surah Quraysh was revealed, something happened that shook the entire Arabian Peninsula. It was the year of the elephant. Abraha, the ruler of Yemen under Abyssinian authority, had built a massive cathedral in Sana'a. He wanted to redirect Arab pilgrimage away from the Kaaba and toward his monument. But the Arabs did not abandon Makkah. So he decided to destroy it. He marched north with an army, not a small raiding party, but a force equipped with elephants. Elephants in Arabia were not normal. They symbolized imperial power, foreign dominance, and overwhelming force. Makkah was not a military fortress. It had no standing army capable of resisting a professional force. Quraysh were traders, not empire builders. When Abraha's army approached, there was no realistic battlefield defense, and yet the Kaaba was not destroyed. Allah describes the event in Surah Al-Fil. Have you not seen how your Lord dealt with the companions of the elephant? Thy birds came in flocks, stones of baked clay rained down, the army collapsed, disease and destruction spread through their ranks. Abraha returned broken, no sword of Quraysh stopped them, no alliance saved them, no tribal negotiation protected them, divine intervention did. Now pause and consider the consequences. If Abraha had destroyed the Kaaba, Quraysh's entire political and economic position would have collapsed. Their prestige depended on that sanctuary. Their trade networks relied on its sacred status. When Allah protected Makkah, He did not just preserve a building, He preserved Quraysh's influence. Word spread across Arabia. The tribe whose sanctuary was defended by unseen forces gained even more respect. Attacking Quraysh caravans now seemed spiritually dangerous. Their trade credibility strengthened, their diplomatic leverage increased, their economy flourished further, not because they defeated Abraha, but because Allah did. And here is the irony. The very tribe whose idols filled the Kaaba was protected by the Lord they ignored. Allah safeguarded the house of Ibrahim alayhi salam, even though its custodians had corrupted it. That protection became the foundation of their future trade security, which leads directly into Surah Quraysh. Because Surah Quraysh is not separate from Surah Al-Fil, it is a continuation. For the security of Quraysh, the surah connects the miracle to the economy. Allah protected you from Abraha. Because of that protection, your winter and summer journeys remain secure. Your trade survives because my house stands. This is not coincidence, it is a divine arrangement. Quraysh saw elephants defeated, but they did not see the accountability that followed. They interpreted survival as entitlement. Allah framed it as responsibility, because when protection comes without gratitude, it becomes evidence against you. The year of the elephant was not just a miracle, it was a warning wrapped in mercy, and Quraysh were about to be reminded that their commercial success had a spiritual condition attached to it. Surah Quraysh is only 4 verses long, but 2 of those verses focus on something that might seem ordinary. For the accustomed security of Quraysh, their accustomed security in the journey of winter and summer. On the surface, it sounds simple. Winter and summer journeys, trade caravans, routine travel. But in 7th century Arabia, nothing about long-distance trade was routine. The Arabian Peninsula was not politically unified. It was fragmented into tribes, each guarding its own territory. Caravan routes crossed hostile lands. A single ambush could destroy months of profit. A broken alliance could collapse entire trade systems. Yet Quraysh traveled safely. Every winter they journeyed south toward Yemen, where the climate was milder. And goods from Africa and the Indian Ocean flowed in. Spices, incense, textiles, agricultural products. Every summer they journeyed north toward Syria, under Byzantine influence. Grain, manufactured goods, luxury items. These journeys were not small. Caravans carried wealth, dozens, sometimes hundreds of camels. Trade required stability, and stability in Arabia was rare. So how did Quraysh secure it? Through strategic agreements. They negotiated treaties with surrounding tribes. They built diplomatic networks. They leveraged their status as custodians of the Kaaba. Tribes hesitated to harm those who served the sacred sanctuary. The Kaaba functioned as their shield. If Makkah was destroyed, their trade would crumble. If the sanctuary lost prestige, their safe passage would disappear. This is why Surah Quraysh ties trade directly to divine protection. Because Quraysh viewed their security as political genius, Allah reframed it as provision. Their journeys were not simply economic activity. They were protected corridors, granted by divine will. Imagine the reality. A barren valley with no agriculture becomes a commercial hub. A tribe without imperial power becomes a regional trade authority, not because of fertile land, not because of military dominance, because of a sacred house. And yet, They forgot the owner of the house. Security became normal. Food became expected. Trade became routine. The extraordinary became invisible. That is the danger of sustained blessing. When fear disappears, gratitude weakens. Surah Quraysh confronts this normalization. It reminds them that the ilaf, the familiarity, the ease, the habitual security, was not self-generated. It was maintained, and that maintenance required worship, because economic flow without spiritual submission leads to arrogance. Quraysh mastered logistics, but they neglected loyalty. They organized caravans, but they ignored revelation. The winter and summer journeys were more than seasonal trips. They were evidence that Allah had stabilized a volatile environment around them, evidence that protection was continuous, evidence that hunger was replaced with provision. And once that evidence is recognized, only one response is appropriate: worship. But that was the very thing Quraysh resisted, which is why Surah Quraysh ends with a command, not a compliment, a reminder that security and food are not random. They are a trust, and trust demands gratitude. Surah Quraysh builds toward a simple but devastating reminder. So let them worship the Lord of this house, who fed them against hunger and secured them against fear. Two blessings: food and security. In the Arabian desert, these were not luxuries, they were surviving. Hunger defined much of Arabia's reality. Droughts were common. Trade could collapse overnight. Raids could wipe out entire caravans. Fear was a normal state of existence for many tribes, but Quraysh had both provision and safety. They were fed in a barren valley. They were secure in a violent region. And over time, those blessings became background noise. This is the psychological shift Surah Quraysh exposes. When fear disappears, people forget who removed it. When hunger fades, people forget who fed them. Security creates comfort. Comfort creates routine. Routine creates complacency. Quraysh had normalized protection. The year of the elephant had shown them divine intervention. Yet, within a short span, life returned to normal. Trade resumed. Markets reopened. Wealth circulated. The extraordinary miracle became history, and history, when not reflected upon, loses urgency. So Allah confronts them directly. Worship the Lord of this house. Notice what He does not say. He does not say, worship the idols inside the house. He does not say, worship the traditions of your forefathers. He redirects them to the true owner. The Kaaba was never theirs. The security was never self-made. The food was never guaranteed. Everything they relied upon came from the Lord they neglected. This is the tension of Surah Quraysh. It is not condemning poverty. It is warning against ingratitude in prosperity, because prosperity without gratitude leads to arrogance. Arrogance leads to rejection, and rejection leads to collapse. Quraysh believed their system was sustainable. Their alliances were strong. Their trade routes were stable. Their political balance was secure. But Surah Quraysh reminds them that all of it rests on worship. If they refuse the one who fed them and secured them, what protects them? If they disconnect blessing from obedience, what stabilizes their future? The surah is short, but its warning is sharp. Security is not proof of righteousness. Provision is not proof of divine approval. They are tests, and Quraysh were failing the test. Instead of worshipping the Lord of the house, they filled it with idols. Instead of gratitude, they chose pride. Instead of reflection, they chose denial. And this is what makes the surah dangerous, because it reveals that comfort can blind a society more effectively than hardship. Hardship makes people seek Allah. Comfort makes them forget Him. Quraysh were secure. They were fed, but they were spiritually drifting. And Surah Quraysh confronts that drift in 4 verses that carry the weight of an entire civilization's accountability. Surah Quraysh is only 4 verses. It can be recited in seconds. Children memorize it early, but its brevity hides its force. Because sometimes the most dangerous reminders are the simplest ones. Surah Quraysh does not argue theology. It does not narrate long stories. It does not list detailed laws. It states facts. You were given security. You were given food. You were protected. So worship. That's it. There is no philosophical debate, no extended explanation, just a direct connection between blessing and obligation. And that is what makes it dangerous, because it removes excuses. Quraysh could not claim ignorance. They saw the year of the elephant. They experienced safe passage across hostile lands. They witnessed caravans return full while others struggled. The surah strips away self-congratulation. You are not powerful because you are brilliant. You are stable because you are sustained. This is the message, and it exposes something deeper about societies. When a community grows economically strong, it begins to believe its systems are permanent. It credits strategy, leadership, and intelligence. It forgets dependence. Surah Quraysh interrupts that illusion. It reminds them that economic success without worship is incomplete. Because provision is not the goal, worship is. The winter and summer journeys were not achievements in themselves. They were platforms. They created the conditions for stability so that Quraysh could fulfill their spiritual responsibility. But instead of worshipping the Lord of the house, they worshipped what was inside it. They maintained the structure of the Kaaba. They abandoned its purpose. And here is why the surah is so dangerous. It applies beyond Quraysh. Any society that enjoys food and security falls under its shadow. When hunger is distant and fear is rare, people assume continuity. They assume tomorrow will look like today. Surah Quraysh quietly asks, why? Why do you assume protection will continue if gratitude disappears? Why do you assume provision is guaranteed if worship fades? The surah does not threaten explicitly, it implies. It implies that blessing has a moral direction attached to it. If that direction is ignored, the foundation weakens. Quraysh thought their trade empire was self-sustaining. Within decades, the same tribe would stand divided, some accepting Islam, others resisting it violently. Their stability would fracture because they rejected the one who sustained it. 4 verses, but they carry a civilizational equation: security plus food plus responsibility. And if responsibility is denied, security is not permanent. That is why Surah Quraysh is short, because the message does not need length, it needs honesty. And when honestly applied, it forces every generation to ask uncomfortable questions. Surah Quraysh is not just about a tribe in 7th century Arabia, it is a mirror. Quraysh were fed in a barren valley. Most of us are fed in cities overflowing with food. Quraysh were secured in a violent region. Many of us live in relative safety, stable streets, protected borders, predictable systems. They had winter and summer trade journeys. We have global supply chains, digital commerce, and instant transactions. They believed their stability was strategic brilliance. How often do we believe the same? We have a credit policy. We credit economics. We credit innovation. Rarely do we pause and ask, who fed us? Who secured us? Surah Quraysh connects provision and safety directly to worship. So let them worship the Lord of this house, not admire the house, not decorate the house. Worship the Lord. That is the shift. Quraysh maintained religious rituals, but resisted submission to revelation. They were attached to the structure of faith, but not to its obedience. And that is what made them vulnerable. The danger was not hunger. The danger was forgetfulness. Today, hunger in many parts of the world is rare compared to history. Security, though imperfect, is more structured than in tribal Arabia. But gratitude? Gratitude measured in worship, that is the real question. Surah Quraysh forces us to confront a quiet reality. Comfort can be a test more severe than hardship. When fear disappears, reliance weakens. When provision is consistent, humility fades. The tribe that controlled Arabia was reminded that control is an illusion. The same applies now. Economic power does not guarantee moral direction. Political stability does not guarantee spiritual alignment. Surah Quraysh is short because its message is universal. Blessing demands worship, security demands gratitude, provision demands obedience. The Kaaba still stands. The Lord of the house is unchanged. And the question remains for every generation that enjoys food and safety: will you worship or will you forget?